Hello everyone and welcome to the very first edition of McGoldrick, Heveldt, all your cricket needs in a podcast. I'm Laura McGoldrick and this is my wonderful friend Guy Heveldt.
Hello there, how are we?
I am chat.
Yeah, very well. Missing cricket, obviously, missing sport in general, but particularly missing cricket. Feels like it's a long way away from coming back.
Does it? What? Now, Guy, you work for TVNZ, you are the sports reporter there. What's that like when there is no sport to report on?
It's been tricky at times. Absolutely it has, trying to come up with different ideas and that sort of thing. But I suppose actually in saying that, there have been a lot of questions around organisations and all that sort of stuff and how they're going to get, whether they're going to get through this and how they're going to get through this as well. So on that front, it's been quite interesting. And also at One News, we've kind of started this home sport thing where people have sent in their videos from all around the country and even some from around the world as to how they're surviving during lockdown particularly. So that's been quite good and that's kind of got us through. And now we're seeing rugby coming back, seeing netball coming back. Eventually cricket will come back in this part of the world as well, and we'll have a lot to talk about. So yeah, it's been challenging at times, but we're getting there, Laura, we're getting there.
You and I have a mutual love of the game of cricket for many, many reasons, but I feel like we should start this podcast by explaining our relationship and how we know each other. So I'm going to let you take that away.
Well, it goes back quite a few years, doesn't it, really? I suppose I kind of know you through your brother, who's one of my best mates. We played cricket through school. Through intermediate and then through, well, he was better than me throughout all these years, but then at high school for a little bit as well. And we became best mates, play golf often as well, hang out, all that sort of stuff. And we kind of got to know each other through that, I guess, and even went to my Leavers school ball.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because if you didn't bring it up, I was going to say I went to Guy's Leavers ball with him.
And what a night it was.
What a night. Well, may I say your father is a wonderful dancer. Can I just put that out there? You are too. I see where you get your moves from. Wonderful.
I was going to say, hopefully.
Exactly. So you played the game. Why did you decide to start talking about the game?
Because I wasn't very good at it. In short, no. Look, well, that is part of it. To be honest, if I was any good at it, I would. If I was any good at it, I would have preferred to have been able to play it properly. But that's by the by. No, I love talking. I love sport. Cricket is my favourite sport. I just feel like, particularly in this part of the world, in this country, in the Black Caps, in New Zealand domestic cricket, there are so many interesting people, so many cool stories, so many fascinating players. There's just a lot to talk about. As I say, I love the game, and getting paid to talk about it and watch it, to me, is probably the ideal scenario, the ideal life, really. So I can't really complain. What about you? Obviously, people will sit back and go, well, you're Martin Guptill's wife, but you've had a bit of a love of the game well before then, haven't you?
Yeah, well, my family always were involved in sport because we come from Christchurch. We're good Cantabs, so you can trust us. I think, watching the boys, I have two brothers who were quite good at cricket, watching them play it, me trying to play it, my dad coaching me at school, which, was always going to end well. I was just not that great at it. And my bowling was my weakness. I was actually all right with the bat because I played a lot of tennis. Tennis was my sport, but bloody awful bowler. Anyway, so my mum is involved in sport. She's a player agent. She did rugby and does cricket, still does cricket now. And my dad used to run Jade Stadium, which was Lancaster Park, which now isn't used, but would have been, I guess, AMI Stadium, or was. I get confused with the names.
It'll always be Lancaster Park to me.
Always. So I guess I grew up watching the game, and I always loved it. My mum's main clients were cricket, so a lot of our family holidays were based around going to cricket games, going to the Basin Reserve for Boxing Day tests, watching Matthew Sinclair against the West Indies get his 200. Like that, those were my school holidays, not like a lot of other families. So yeah, so we just grew up around it. I always loved the game, and I always loved talking. So funny that. And I wanted to be an actress, but that, you know, didn't sort of pan out the way often those things do. And ended up talking cricket and started in the cricket show. Second person I interviewed was Martin Guptill. Thought he was a bit all right, and that was that. So that's that story done. And yeah, so my family still loves cricket and is still involved, and more so now.
Hey, you were good in Les Mis, mate. You were good in Les Mis.
Mate, can I just say, that was a really iconic moment in my life, being a part of Les Mis, the Rangiroa Christ College production of Les Mis, 2004, I think it was. I mean, I still... Glad you brought it up. We found the videos. We found the videos of it in lockdown. Mum found all the singing videos. But yeah, so so that's where my love of cricket, I suppose, started, at least.
What is your earliest cricket memory? You talked about Matthew Sinclair's double century. I remember that as well. What's your earliest cricket memory?
First cricket game I truly remember going to was a one-dayer. It was at the SCG, and we were on a family holiday, and it was Pakistan versus Australia, and there was a streaker. I don't know what happened in the game, but all I remember, that's like and I just remember the streaker and being like, Mum, what the hell is this? And she's like, this was not what we signed up for. Honestly, you know, whoa. That is probably one of my earliest memories of going to cricket. And then just Jade Stadium and those Canterbury, you remember those big wide stripes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But it's funny you say the streaker, because that's actually my first cricket memory as well. Not the exact same game, but it was the Black Caps, or they weren't called the Black Caps then, but it was New Zealand against Pakistan in a test at the Basin Reserve. I used to live in Wellington. I was born there. I used to live in Wellington, and this was when I was quite young. And we went to the Basin Reserve, and the very first thing I remember from watching live cricket, going to a ground and watching cricket, is this guy streaking fully nude from one side of the Basin Reserve to the other, and getting out the other side and escaping. And that's the first thing that I remember from being in a live cricket match.
The Basin seems to be the only ground that you can get away with it, because there's an obvious in and out. I think that makes sense. Yeah. I did once see a whole chicken get thrown at a game at the Basin Reserve at a test match, which was one of the more bizarre moments of my cricket watching career. But a whole chicken, it was interesting.
Raw?
Yeah, no, cooked. I think they'd just gone down to the new way there. Okay. But, you know, what a waste is what I was thinking. But what are you going to put in your rolls now? But Guy, so you have now, with this career that you have created and are doing very well at, you've been to some amazing games since that you get to cover, and you get to interview players now. So what do you think's been the greatest game that you've been able to cover? And I know where you're going with this, which is why I asked. Really, yeah.
You're right. I have been very lucky to go to quite a few games in my role as a sports journalist, particularly with TVNZ and the cricket reporter there, which has just been, as I said before, I get paid to go to these games and watch cricket and talk about cricket. Like it really, you know, and you'd know this. Really,
it's the greatest job in the world. It's hard to call it a job because you're like, all right, I'll go.
And that's why we started this, because we got to talk about cricket in another platform. Like, it doesn't get any better. But to go back to your original question, look, it's got it. Well, actually, there are two games, and funnily enough, they were one after the other. The Cricket World Cup semi-final the last year, and then the Cricket World Cup final. We'll start with the semi-final, which was one of the most amazing days that I have ever, from start to, well, actually, it was 2 days.
First 2 day, 1 day I've ever been there in my life.
From start to finish, though, like even the day before, all these Indian fans had come because they assumed that they were going to be playing wherever the other semi-final was. I can't remember where the other one was, but it was elsewhere, Birmingham maybe. They were thinking they were going to be playing there. So all the Indian fans had booked their tickets to go to the Birmingham game, Birmingham semi-final, but then they had to scrounge around for tickets at the Manchester game where they're, of course, playing the Black Caps. And so all of a sudden this huge flood of Indian fans just started arriving in Manchester.
Can I ask you, before you go on to the actual game, how did you feel? Because I had a real sense of, oh boy, because I had fully thought we were going to play Australia in that semi-final, and I was like, got it, we've got it. Like, I feel so good about beating Australia, 2015, little revenge, here we go. When we got India, I started to get very nervous.
I was the complete opposite. The
No, you were
complete
not.
and utter opposite. I was the only and I pretty much stand by this. I was the only person I think that I spoke to, and possibly in the media, who thought that the Black Caps were going to win. I don't know. There was just something weird about my feeling around that game, that if they managed to get 240 on the board, which they did, and then get a couple of early wickets, which they did, the whole thing would change. To me, it was all about taking that Indian crowd out of the entire match, and that's exactly what the Black Caps managed to do. And we'll talk about this a bit more in depth shortly, but just to answer your question, yeah, I had this weird feeling of confidence the entire time, and that didn't really falter at all throughout the match. I remember people saying, oh, the Black Caps are going so slowly, 240 is not going to be enough, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff.
I don't think anyone understood how tricky that pitch was. And they actually were tricky pitches throughout that World Cup, like to bat on. They weren't the easiest to bat on, which makes what Kane Williamson did over there and Ross Taylor even more extraordinary, the runs they scored on those pitches.
But that's what I was trying to tell people. I was going, if it's this hard for Kane Williamson to score runs, like if Kane Williamson's going to take this long to score runs, but he's not going to get out, then there's got to be something up with the pitch. Like, it's just that difficult to bat on. So that actually gave me more confidence that he was doing that, but he hadn't got out, but he was still able to get runs, albeit slowly. So in my head, I was going, yeah, this pitch is just difficult. The Black Caps are going to be fine. 240, it's going to be close, but 240 is going to be a competitive score, whereas a lot of people are thinking 240 is nowhere near enough. The Black Caps are going to get rolled.
Once that rain started, because I was nervous before the game started, and then some things sort of started to happen, like the rain, and then it looked like the day was going to end and we were going to have to come back tomorrow. I was like, oh, this is good for us. Like, this is real good. And I tell you what made me change. When Guppy reviewed the LBW quite early in the piece, and he wasn't out, and there was the change. And I like to think, I think that sometimes with the Indian team, they don't like little things that don't go their way. It's sort of
exactly.
We lost the toss. Kohli lost the toss. Yeah. Wee little things that sort of started to trickle out, and I was like, okay, no, this is starting to get real interesting. And I think that was when I was like, no, she's all we're going to Lords. I mean, I know.
I actually saw your mum when it started raining on day one, and she started crying. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. She started crying because she was so nervous. And I said to her, and she can confirm this to you, but I said to her, I put my arm around her and I said, Leanne, it's going to be fine. New Zealand is going to win this game. Like, it's just sitting perfectly. And I said to her, look at these Indian fans. If you looked at them however many hours ago it was when they arrived at the ground, 6 or 8 hours ago or whatever, they were so cock-a-hoop. They were so loud. We're going to the World Cup final. Virat Kohli's going to win us the World Cup, all this sort of stuff. And then when the rain hit and when New Zealand had actually batted okay, they were the ones who were going, this is not good. This really isn't good. The atmosphere change and the body language change in about the space of 2 hours was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And Old Trafford is such a beautiful ground. Manchester was, I just really enjoyed being there for it. But the families, the wives and partners and children were at one end of the ground, and the families were all over the other. So we couldn't be together. So we were trying to be as loud as we can. And at one point on that second day, when I think it was Trent got Kohli, I stood up on a table and because we were trying to be as loud as we could, because we were so sure with the way the ground worked that the boys could hear us. This was our thinking. We're like, no, we're gonna carry this thing. No, we weren't. But we're like, we're gonna be so loud. And the Indians they would actually turn around and started giving it to us, the fans. So I got up on the thing and I'm banging the roof of it. It was so exciting. It was one of the most exciting sort of days, half days, I don't know what you call it, of cricket, that second day. When the sun came out, I was like, you beauty. It was fantastic, isn't it?
But just going all the way and kind of tying into that and going all the way back to before day one, before the game even started, when we kind of got to the ground and we were doing live crosses and all that sort of stuff and piece to cams and interviewing Indian fans and stuff, and they're always confident, they always say, oh, Dhoni's the king and Kohli's the king, no one's going to get past us on that sort of stuff. But it was 10 times more than that before this game. Like, it was an unbelievable. it was bordering on arrogance, and they never think that their team's going to lose, and that's fine, and that's what makes them so great. You've got to love Indian fans, and it was one of the best experiences. Yeah, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had, because they made it what it was. But their confidence was just so unbelievable before that game, and then, as I say, we interviewed them again at the end of day one, and they were, one guy even said, "Oh, I'm not going to come tomorrow because we're not going to win. Like we're done. We haven't got them out quick." They thought they were going to get us out for about 120. Like that's what they thought was going to happen, and that didn't happen. And so all of a sudden, this confidence, and this was what I was talking about before. If the Black Caps managed to shut the crowd up, and all of a sudden silence this throng of Indian fans, the whole game changes. And that's exactly what happened come day two. They then got a few early wickets as well. And Old Trafford was this bizarre place of almost serenity, because Indian fans weren't doing anything.
It was deathly silent, except for the Kiwis going, "Ah, ah." Like, I yelled so loud, my daughter got cross with me, and she's 2. But there were moments, though, and I'm sure you felt it too in the media box. There were moments when Dhoni was batting, where the crowd started to pep up a bit, and I was getting
absolutely.
I was pacing up the hallway. I'm like,
But then there were 2 moments that changed the game. One was Nishan's catch, and how on earth he managed to hold on to that. I don't know how. I mean, because you said before in the media box, because there were so many media, because it was an Indian game, there were so many media that we were actually in a outdoor media area. So we were sitting amongst the fans, essentially. Like, there were probably 30 media seats, but then the rest, we were surrounded by Indian fans. So we got the full atmosphere. But when Nishan took that catch, and as I say, God knows how he took that catch, but it was an unbelievable take. There was a moment there where there was a bit of silence, but then, Dhoni came in, and whoever else helped him push along towards the total. Jadeja, thank you. Name escaped me. So that then they picked up their voice again, but then, and you know what's coming, Martin Guptill's
quite good
run out, and that was when the Indian fans knew that the game was over. That was when it was done. That was when they knew it. And as I say, to just feel that deflation come out of that crowd, and elation come from about 1/10,000th of the crowd, was just staggering.
I went so my job throughout the World Cup was to do post-match. We do a couple of days in the build-up, talk to the players, and then it was all post-match interviews with players and whoever else. And I remember walking around the ground and just seeing smoke billowing up, and it was Indian fans that had burnt their flags. And I was like, "Oh God, the thing's on fire!" Because there was tears. There was all this sort of what's the word? Yeah. That they had added extra seating to which they needed for that.
10%. Yeah.
10%. And I was like, "Oh my God, they're going to go flames!" But it was quite extraordinary. So that's your first. That's
my first one. Yeah, and then so actually after that, it must have been the next morning, maybe. Oh no, it was after, because obviously day 2 the game finished a little bit earlier than usual. So we went to the team hotel just to get the scenes of the players coming back and all that sort of stuff. And obviously through knowing you and through knowing your brother Chris, I know Martin pretty well. And he gave me the biggest hug when he came off the bus, and that just made me feel so, because he was just obviously had been through an absolute shitter at the time, and to see him, this big smile on his face, to have that confidence back was just one of the coolest moments of that whole tournament. And that hug I got, I won't forget that. That was so cool. But then, of course, on to the final. Makes me want to cry too. And so does what we're about to talk about make me want to cry as well, even just thinking about it. On to the final. And actually, it was funny when we kind of first got the idea of possibly doing this podcast. One of the first shows that we talked about was the reunion show for the Cricket World Cup final, which of course rolls around in July, which listeners and viewers, we do have big plans for. We are going to get numerous people on to talk about that. It might go for a while, but
because we still think about it every day.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I actually woke up the other morning and that was the first thing I thought about. Call me weird, but know me before you judge me.
By the way, can I just say?
And yeah, so when we were talking about doing this reunion podcast for the Cricket World Cup final, we spoke about getting Johnny Bairstow on, and of course he was going through a bit of a fitness cloud leading up to that match. And one thing I remember in the build up to that match is being at Lord's, and of course I think it was England trained first and then the Black Caps trained afterwards. And so you spent your whole day at Lord's getting vision of England training and the Black Caps training.
Was the cricket fan you dying? Because I sure as hell was. I'm walking around Lord's, I'm like, this is the greatest day of my. I don't even.
Oh mate, it was unbelievable. We were like pretty much walking across the middle of Lord's cricket ground the day before the Cricket World Cup.
So this is the slope.
Oh, so yeah, which actually you say that, but boy, on TV you don't think it's there, and then you see it in real life, and you're like, okay, this is really weird.
The way the stand rolls, yeah,
very bizarre. But anyway, he was going through a fitness test, and everyone else. So at Lord's, there's the big obvious ground, which everyone knows, and then out the back there's this kind of second ground. It's not really a cricket ground, but it's this big piece of grass. Yeah, the nursery, and it's got nets set up, and so. The batsmen were all out in the nets doing their thing, and the bowlers were as well, obviously, having a net session. But Johnny Bairstow was under this fitness cloud, and so he was having this fitness test on Lord's proper. And while everyone else was filming that, I said to my cameraman Fitz, I said, mate, I reckon we should just go and try and film some of Johnny Bairstow doing his fitness test. So we went out and we kind of we weren't sure whether we were meant to be filming it and whether we would get kind of
It's easy to ask for forgiveness and permission sometimes.
You're onto it. So we set up the camera kind of sort of behind the sight screen so that they wouldn't obviously see us. But within about 3 seconds, Johnny Bairstow spotted me. And the evil look that he gave me, as if to be like, what the hell are you doing here? Piss off. Was priceless. And anyway, we kept filming him, and he finished his fitness test, and he made his way under the big media thing to the nursery, and he just stared at me the whole way as he was walking past me, and it was so bloody funny. Anyway, he got past fit to play, and do we actually want to talk about the match, Laura?
Well, I think we might need to save it for the thing, because I don't know if I can keep reliving it. It's honestly,
I think you're right.
The saddest thing about that game, though, is I genuinely think it's one of the greatest one days ever played, but I'll never be able to watch it. I'll never be able to watch it because I don't think I can.
Yeah. No, I've got this video on my phone because I thought, we're going to win the World Cup. And so I filmed the last ball.
No, you didn't.
And
have you ever
I did. No. And I was actually flicking through my videos the other day to find another video, and I saw it there. Oh, no. And I was like, do I delete this?
I don't delete it. Just don't
and
do
I thought, nah, in 20 years' time, that might be a little bit of something that I could actually look back on and enjoy. But you're right, we'll talk about that in detail. But are those the types of games that you remember the most, or what are the ones that stick out for you? You've been to a few pretty good ones.
I think that the best part about New Zealand, I mean, I thought there was a real moment in that World Cup campaign in 2019 where New Zealand announced themselves as real contenders, and I felt it was that game against the West Indies. If you could still win that game the way we did, as terrifying as it was in Manchester, I thought, oh yeah, these guys are they're fighters, so this is good. So I loved most of those. They were such exciting games that New Zealand was a part of. Some just terrifying, but others just really exciting. The 2015 World Cup was really great. Obviously the quarterfinal for personal reasons was one of the greatest games I've ever been to. I mean, 237 not out. What is he doing? I mean, that was great. But actually the semi-final at Eden Park, just in terms of a spectacle as well, and all these things, New Zealand just, it was so good. And that last moment, there was, for lots of reasons, that game was really special to me, but I watched the last couple of overs with the late Alan Henderson. So for those of you who don't know, Alan Henderson was Thingy, but he was also a producer and a cameraman and a sound-up, like he was jack of all trades.
And a legend of a bloke.
He'd like a beard dark, but not too dark. And he and I were watching it together. And he said to me, Laura, it feels like 92 all over again. And I was like, Alan, you shut your mouth. Shut your mouth when you're talking to me. You can't say these things to me, Ellen. I'm so superstitious. And we were holding hands when the last ball was bowled. And then I just remember this big cuddle. It's the cuddle of a victory. And it felt like, the whole stadium just, I'll never forget that. in my whole life. So there's lots of little bits like that from games that I love.
Yeah.
But I think, I think the two you mentioned plus the two I've got there.
I actually feel a little bit guilty not talking about 2015 when I talk about my favourite games because, sorry, my phone just cut out and I actually stopped talking. The joys of 2020 and having to do things over
Zoom vlogging and podcasting. It's a wonderful thing.
But no, I was just saying, I actually feel kind of guilty not talking about 2015 and my favourite games because it's just, Grant Elliott's shot, as you mentioned, that six was just one of the. I've never hugged so many random people in my life, like strangers. It was just unbelievable.
Just grown men piling on top of each other. It was quite a scene.
I guess the other two games kind of stick out for me more because they're more recent. But what about you were at the MCG for Warnie's historic 700th, weren't you?
Yeah, that was amazing. It was the Ashes. It was Melbourne. Mum had organised it. It was a family trip. We were all there. My word, the MCG is such an incredible place. It was just such a shame I wasn't cheering for Australia either times I've been there when she's been a full house, which was the 2015 World Cup final and this Ashes series. There are two things that really stuck out for me in that game. The first one was obviously the 700th wicket and how long that standing ovation lasted. I'll never forget that. I was like, oh, what do you got to do to get one of those for yourself? My God, it must be insane. The feeling of all these, and the ball at everyone, and amazing. And the other thing that struck me just so much was Kevin Peterson. Now, Kevin Peterson, I know you either loved him or you hated him. But and England were getting hammered in that Ashes series. I mean, I'm not even sure they really turned up at all. But it didn't matter to Kevin Peterson because he walked out and you just instantly knew you had to watch him because he walked out with such confidence and his shoulders back and the way he operated, it was like, damn, you got to watch this guy because something real special could happen here because you just didn't know. It was quite amazing. So I remember that Andrew Simons and Matthew Hayden got 100 each that day. That test match, and Australia won. So that was a great game to go to as well. Matthew Sinclair's 200 was amazing. There was a century that Chris Cairns scored against India, 115 I think he ended up on, at Jade State at Lancaster Park, which I'll never forget. So there's lots of games that I count as my favourite, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, there's too many to say.
Still 2-2-2, that sticks out.
I miss the Christ.
We don't really have the time here.
I miss the Christ College dance. That's great innings. One of the great innings there. Sensational.
You've got to go to something good to give up a ticket to the Cross College dance.
Well, I tell you what, it was the one to go to because they had the better DJ. Let's be honest. So we're obviously very big cricket fans, and we've got big plans for this podcast. We're going to get people on. We're going to talk to them. We're going to get some insights. We're going to talk to, some players who have made some big decisions in their career and talk about how it's affected them and if they think it was the right move or not. What else, Guy? What else are we going to do on this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go domestic and we'll go international. There are a lot of people inside, not New Zealand Cricket as an organisation, but New Zealand Cricket, who have so many. I mean, there are good people in New Zealand Cricket as well, but I more mean the sport, who have so many good stories, who have done things that people probably wouldn't realise that they've done. So we just want to delve into all of that, and obviously once cricket kind of starts up again, and once we get an idea of even what's going to happen with cricket in this part of the world, we'll be talking a lot about that as well. And we're going to go international too. I think Laura and I luckily have a few contacts around the world, so we might be able to get some big name guests for you guys to hear from and kind of delve into their stories a bit and past and present and future, I guess, and talk all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're excited. We've got big plans. It's such a great sport that continues to keep on giving in all three formats across men's and women's cricket as well. We will have women cricketers on both from New Zealand and abroad as well, because there's lots to talk about in that form of the game too. And so yeah, I'm just thoroughly excited.
So am I. We've got a lot to talk about and we genuinely love the game. So we thank you guys so much for watching this first vlogcast, listening to this first podcast. There's so much more, so stick with us. And if you've got any people that you'd like us to try and track down, you make sure that you put these in the comments so we can start doing that. Guy, you had something else to say?
Well, just before I want to go, there are a lot of people who have asked me this since I kind of got this idea to ask you, what's it actually like interviewing Martin Guptill? I know you didn't have to do it after he scored 237, and that was probably a good thing because I imagine you would have been.
I had breathed for 237 runs. I was dying. Oh man, I needed to go to the toilet.
What's it generally like when, both when he comes off the park after either an amazing innings or unfortunately the latter when maybe it doesn't go quite as well for him?
When I'm talking to work capacity or when we go home?
Yeah, no, work capacity.
Look, I think we both understand because of the way we met, these are our jobs. And on that day, those jobs come first. So as much as I want to give them a hug and a tap on the bum and say, you're awesome no matter what, and it doesn't, I don't do that. We don't do that. That's not how we operate because we both know that they're our jobs and we are professionals at the end of the day. And this is what is expected of us. I think if you go down the road of, Chris Gale and Don't Blush Baby, it's a slippery slope. And so it's never even crossed our minds actually to do it any other way than be totally professional. So it's fine. It's just part of our jobs. If I ask a dumb question, he might offer some suggestions later, which always, if you know me, goes down real well. No, it's good. Actually, he's so wonderful and he's so supportive of my career because I often think it must be so weird for him. Like, your wife's on the sideline instead of sitting watching. So he's really supportive and he's very helpful. He's such a great, because he loves the game as well and he watches a lot of it. And I tell you what, how good's Sky Sport 2 been, or 52 been on watching the replays, like that Hobart test that we won against Oz. Oh my God, it was good. It's good to go back. But Guppy is a great source of knowledge and a source of support for me through doing the job because I spent a lot of my career being like, people don't, people aren't sure about me because I never played the game to a particularly high level, but they don't understand how much I love the game. So, but Guppy's been a really good sounding board for that throughout.
Well, I understand how much you love the game, and that's why I thought it would be a good idea for us to do this podcast together. You know the game very well. You are very professional, as is Gup. And so, no, that works very well as well. So, as I said before, I'm just really excited to be doing this with you. Obviously, as it stands at the moment, things aren't ideal in the world. So we're coming to you through Zoom, and so the audio may not be as best quality as it will be once we get our big plans underway. But rest assured that once things die down, McGoldrick and Guy Heveldt will sound beautiful through your ears. It'll look great.
She is going places.